You are sitting in your car, the engine turned off, staring at your phone. Someone has just sent you a text asking for a favor you physically and emotionally do not have the capacity to grant. You know you should say no, but as you even think about typing those two letters, a wave of cold panic washes over you. Your chest tightens, your breathing grows shallow, and a toxic mix of guilt and dread pools in your stomach. You feel like a criminal just for wanting to protect your own energy. If you say yes, you will resent them and abandon yourself. If you say no, the guilt will eat you alive for the rest of the day. If this is familiar, if you recognize that somatic chokehold where choosing yourself feels like an act of violence against someone else, then what you are experiencing is the excruciating birth of your own healing. According to Dr. Gabor Maté's clinical work on childhood development and trauma, people-pleasing is not a sweet personality trait or a sign of an exceptionally kind heart. It is a survival strategy. It is a protective shield your nervous system forged in childhood to keep you safe and connected. And when you finally begin to dismantle that shield, your body does not throw a party. It sounds an alarm. Because to a nervous system trained on self-abandonment, healing does not feel like peace. It feels like selfishness. This is the uncomfortable truth about recovering from people-pleasing. The very signs that prove you are getting healthy will initially make you feel like a terrible person. And until you understand the biology of this transition, you will mistake your healing for a moral failing and run back to the safety of your own depletion. For years, we have lived under a profound psychological misunderstanding. We have praised the person who never says no, the colleague who works themselves to the bone, and the partner who never complains. We call them saintly, selfless, and easygoing. But a trauma-informed perspective offers a much more honest and challenging observation. Gabor Maté's work consistently demonstrates that when a child's environment requires them to choose between authenticity and attachment, they will always choose attachment. If your parents were overwhelmed, emotionally volatile, or only loving when you were performing, your young nervous system realized that expressing your true feelings, boundaries, or anger was a threat to your connection with them. And since disconnection to an infant or child means literal death, your system made a brilliant protective decision. It suppressed your authenticity to secure your attachment. You learned to read the emotional climate of the room. You learned to ignore the quiet protests of your own gut. You became the good child, the quiet child, the helper. The problem is, the body remembers what the mind was forced to forget. As an adult, those survival strategies have become your personality, but your nervous system is still operating under the old childhood contract. If I please you, I survive. If I disappoint you, I die. This is why, when you start to heal, your body reacts with sheer terror. You are breaking a lifelong survival contract. Let us look at 4 profound signs that you are successfully healing from people-pleasing, even though every single one of them will make you feel incredibly selfish. And the 4th one is the deepest, most terrifying shift of all. The first sign that you are healing is that you tolerate the burning discomfort of guilt instead of rescuing others from disappointment. In the past, your relationship with guilt was simple. You would do absolutely anything to avoid it. If someone asked you to help them move, work an extra shift, or listen to them vent for the 3rd hour in a row, you said yes immediately. You did this not because you wanted to help, but because the guilt of saying no was a physical sickness you could not tolerate. You would rather abandon your own sleep, your own family, and your own mental health than sit with the feeling that someone was unhappy with you. But as you heal, something shifts. A request comes in, and you say, "I'm sorry, I can't help with that this time." Immediately the guilt hits you. It feels like a physical weight in your chest. The old voices start screaming that you are lazy, ungrateful, and a bad friend. But instead of picking up the phone to take it back, instead of apologizing 10 times and trying to fix their disappointment, you do something revolutionary. You do nothing. You sit in your chair, you feel the burn of the guilt in your body, and you let it pass. This feels deeply selfish. It feels cold. But from a trauma-informed perspective, this is not selfishness. This is the reclamation of your nervous system. According to Dr. Gabor Maté, when you rescue someone from their disappointment by abandoning your own boundaries, you are not actually helping them. You are using them to self-medicate your own anxiety. You are saying yes to quiet the panic in your own body. When you choose to say no and sit with the subsequent guilt, you are finally teaching your nervous system a new truth. I can disappoint someone and still be safe. Their feelings are their responsibility. My boundaries are mine. This doesn't mean you're broken. It means your mind is finally learning to protect you instead of managing everyone else. Tolerating that guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. That is not weakness. That is intelligence in service of survival, finally updating its programming to match your present reality. But here is what most people miss. The moment you start setting these boundaries, you will encounter resistance. And the second sign of your healing will test your resolve in a way that feels utterly unnatural. The second sign is that you allow others to have a wrong, negative opinion of you without trying to correct it. For a chronic people pleaser, being misunderstood is an emergency. If someone thinks you are selfish, lazy, mean, or unreasonable, your entire system goes into overdrive. You will spend hours crafting long explanatory text messages. You will over-explain your decisions, cite your exhaustion, and defend your character. You desperately need them to see that you are still a good person, because if they hold a negative image of you in their mind, your attachment system feels deeply threatened. But as you heal, you begin to do something that feels incredibly arrogant. You stop explaining. When someone says, "You've really changed, you're not as supportive as you used to be," or when a family member reacts to your boundary with passive-aggressive silence, you do not chase them. You do not write the 5-paragraph essay explaining why you had to say no. You simply let the silence stand. You let them go to bed thinking you are the bad guy. This feels like a betrayal of your own nature. It feels like you are becoming a hardened, uncaring person, but psychologists have observed that the obsessive need to control how others perceive us is actually a form of hypervigilance. When you were a child, if a parent was angry with you, your safety depended on changing their mind. You had to convince them you were good to regain their warmth. As an adult, letting someone think you are selfish without trying to convince them otherwise is a massive victory. It means you are decoupling your self-worth from their perception. You are realizing that their opinion of you is filtered through their own wounds, their own expectations, and their own capacity. Not because something was wrong with you, because something was wrong with the idea that you had to be perfect to be worthy of existing. When you allow someone to be wrong about you, you are finally stepping out of the courtroom. You are resigning from the trial of your own life. And this is where the healing gets even more intimate, because it begins to alter how you navigate the emotional atmosphere of your daily life. The third sign that you are healing is that you stop acting as the emotional manager of your environment. You are the person who can feel a shift in a room's temperature before anyone else. If your partner walks into the kitchen and sighs slightly too loudly, you immediately ask, "Is everything okay? Did I do something?" If a coworker is quiet during a meeting, you spend the afternoon wondering if they are angry with you. You have spent your entire life treating other people's negative emotions as fires that you are personally obligated to put out. You crack jokes to break awkward silences, you soothe people who are angry, and you carry the emotional weight of every relationship you are in. But as you heal, you stop volunteering for this job. Your partner comes home in a terrible mood, slams the cupboards, and grunts. Instead of jumping up to fix it, ask what's wrong, or walk on eggshells, you stay sitting on the couch. You continue reading your book. You hold a quiet space in your mind that says, they are having a hard day. That is their experience to have. It is not my job to fix it, and it is not my fault. You allow the silence in the house to be heavy, and you do not try to lighten it. To your old self, this feels incredibly cold, neglectful, and self-centered. It feels as though you are abandoning the people you love. But according to Dr. Gabor Maté, this hyper-attunement to other people's emotional states is not a natural gift. It is a protective reflex. If you grew up with a parent who was emotionally unpredictable, depressed, or volatile, your survival depended on predicting their weather. You had to soothe them to keep yourself safe. Now, as an adult, stepping down as the emotional manager of your household is the only way to recover from chronic fatigue and stress. The body remembers what the mind was forced to forget. By refusing to manage their mood, you are finally giving the people in your life the dignity of their own emotional experiences. You are allowing them to be sad, angry, or disappointed without trying to manipulate their feelings to make yourself feel safe. That is not coldness. That is the beginning of genuine, mature intimacy. And now we come to the fourth sign, the deepest, most terrifying one, the one that feels like the ultimate act of selfishness, but is actually the ultimate act of self-preservation. The fourth sign is your willingness to lose a relationship to keep yourself. Throughout your life, you have operated under a silent, terrifying rule. I must keep this relationship at all costs. You would tolerate emotional neglect, boundary violations, disrespect, and chronic depletion because the thought of a relationship ending was too devastating to contemplate. You would gladly let parts of your own identity, your dreams, and your peace die if it meant keeping the connection alive. But as you heal, the math of your life begins to change. You look at a friendship where you do all the giving and they do all the taking, and you stop reaching out. You set a boundary with a toxic family member, and when they threaten to cut you off if you don't comply, you take a deep breath and you let them walk away. You realize that you are no longer willing to drink poison just because you are thirsty. You reach a point where you say, I love you, but I love myself more. And if keeping you means abandoning me, then the price of this relationship is too high. This feels like the ultimate betrayal. It feels like a failure. Your nervous system will scream that you are throwing away love, that you will end up completely alone, and that you are being heartless. According to Gabor Maté, this is the most critical juncture of the healing journey. This is the moment where you finally resolve the ancient childhood conflict between attachment and authenticity. For the first time in your life, you are choosing authenticity. You are refusing to pay for connection with the currency of your own soul. This does not mean you are broken. It means your mind and body have finally realized that you are strong enough to survive the pain of disconnection. You are no longer that helpless child who will die without the approval of the adults around them. You are an adult with your own resources, your own strength, and your own life. That willingness to let go, that is not selfishness. That is intelligence in service of survival, finally declaring that your own life is worth protecting. You are not broken. You are simply recovering from a lifetime of being trained to care for everyone but yourself. You were taught that your value lay in your usefulness, your silence, and your convenience. Of course it feels terrifying to start taking up space. Of course you feel like a bad person when you start saying no, setting boundaries, and letting people carry their own emotional weight. Your body is detoxing from a chemical addiction to approval that kept you safe for decades. According to Dr. Maté, Healing is not a process of becoming someone new. It is a process of uncovering who you always were before the world told you who you had to be to survive. When you stop people-pleasing, you are not becoming meaner. You are becoming truer. And from that truth, you can finally build relationships that are based on genuine love rather than survival-driven compliance. This is slow, revolutionary work. It will not happen all at once. You will have days where you set a boundary and then spend 3 hours obsessing over whether they are mad at you. You will have days where you slide back into old patterns of over-explaining and rescuing. But you will also have moments of quiet triumph. You will have a moment where you say no, feel the guilt, and then go make yourself a cup of tea anyway. You will have a moment where someone is angry with you, and you realize with a shock of clarity that their anger is about them, not you. You will have a moment where you look in the mirror and realize that the person you are most committed to pleasing is the one looking back at you. These small, seemingly selfish decisions are the bricks with which you build your freedom. The same nervous system that learned to adapt to neglect and unpredictability can learn to rest in safety. The same body that carried the tension of everyone else's emotional needs can learn to drop its shoulders, unclench its jaw, and breathe. Neuroplasticity is not just a scientific concept. It is the biological promise that you can change the default setting of your life from survival to peace. You have spent your whole life trying to keep everyone else warm while you froze. It is time to let them build their own fires. It is time to come inside and get warm yourself. Which of these 4 signs of healing felt the most familiar or perhaps the most terrifying to you? If conversations like this feel valuable to you, consider subscribing. This channel is a sanctuary for those who are ready to stop sacrificing their authenticity for attachment and who are ready to finally understand the language of their own healing. Self-understanding will not rewrite your past, but it will change how your past lives inside your body today, and that is where your freedom begins. The hardest part of healing from people-pleasing is realizing that to the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries, your recovery will look like selfishness. If you saw yourself in these signs, which one of them are you currently practicing, and how are you handling the guilt that comes with it? Healing feels selfish. The people-pleaser's recovery, tolerating the guilt. Why does healing from people-pleasing feel like you're becoming a bad person? In this deeply validating video inspired by the psychological insights of Dr. Gabor Maté, we explore why recovery from chronic self-abandonment triggers such intense feelings of guilt, anxiety, and selfishness. Discover the childhood roots of people-pleasing, where children must choose attachment over authenticity to survive, and how these survival strategies become adult personality traits. We break down 4 counterintuitive signs of healing: tolerating the somatic burn of guilt, letting others be wrong about you, resigning as the emotional manager of your environment, and being willing to walk away from relationships that require your depletion. Learn to stop fighting your guilt and start understanding it as your nervous system's way of updating its old survival contracts.